Ambassador Zara Sin stood in the Grand Galactic Council chambers, a place that had long been a symbol of interstellar diplomacy and unity. The room was a marvel of architectural brilliance, constructed from crystal spires that twisted and shimmered, refracting light from the distant stars into kaleidoscopic hues. It was as if the universe itself had been harnessed and molded into the heart of the council. Yet today, even the breathtaking splendor of this place seemed to be overshadowed by the heavy air of anticipation. Zara took a steadying breath, her hand resting gently on the armrest of her official stand. Beside her, Ilara Glimmer, her ever-loyal assistant, stood quietly. Ilara's bioluminescent markings, a unique trait of her kind, glowed with a soft blue luminescence that rippled in time with her fluctuating emotions. At the moment, those markings betrayed a hint of anxiety, casting faint, shimmering patterns on the polished crystal floor. Ilara maintained a composed exterior, but Zara, who had known her for years, could sense the unease beneath her calm demeanor. The massive doors at the far end of the chamber slid open with a low, resonant hum that commanded the attention of every being present. Silence fell over the assembly as the human delegation made its entrance. Ambassador Daniel Vega walked with the poise of someone used to being in positions of authority. His dark hair was impeccably groomed, and his deep blue eyes scanned the room with a calculated calmness. He wore a tailored uniform adorned with the insignia of Earth's interstellar union, a reminder that humanity was a species that had fought tooth and nail to survive in a galaxy that often seemed determined to crush them. Flanking him were two prominent figures, Commander Liam Cross and Chief of Security Aria Thorne. Liam's presence was a study in military precision. His every step was deliberate, his posture that of a seasoned soldier who had seen countless battles yet stood ready for more. Aria Thorne, on the other hand, was a stark contrast. Her piercing gaze swept over the room, assessing every potential threat and vulnerability with an intensity that made even seasoned council members shift uncomfortably. Her dark hair was cropped short, and the hard lines of her expression made it clear she took her role as protector very seriously. Zara couldn't help but study them, comparing their confident and professional demeanor to the preconceived notions she had held about humans. She had grown up hearing stories about their tenacity and their history, tales that painted them as both fearsome and admirable. They were a species that had clawed their way from the brink of extinction more than once, fueled by an indomitable will to survive. But with that came a reputation for aggression, a history marked by wars and relentless survival tactics. Despite their emphasis on peace today, Zara knew the scars of their past ran deep. The initial meeting began, and the tension was palpable. The humans, led by Daniel Vega, spoke eloquently about their desire for peace and collaboration. Yet their approach was starkly different from the Concordat's philosophy. They emphasized the necessity of strength as a means of safeguarding peace, a doctrine that clashed with Zara's deeply held beliefs. Her people had long adhered to a policy of non-violence, believing that harmony could only be achieved through understanding and negotiation. To hear the humans advocate for peace maintained through vigilance and military might was unsettling. Zara found herself studying Daniel Vega, searching for signs of duplicity. His words were measured, his demeanor almost disarming, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than met the eye. His companions, Liam and Aria, remained silent yet vigilant, a constant reminder that humanity never truly let down its guard. Zara glanced at Ilara, who was observing the humans with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. The bioluminescent markings along Ilara's neck pulsed with a yellowish hue, signaling caution. Throughout the meeting, subtle ideological clashes emerged. The humans spoke of their commitment to protecting not just themselves but any allies willing to stand by them. They mentioned the countless sacrifices made by their people to safeguard colonies and settlements. Their argument was compelling, but it also exposed the chasm between their worldview and that of the Concordat. Zara listened, conflicted, her mind racing with thoughts of how their philosophies could ever align. As the discussion unfolded, Zara became increasingly aware of the unease spreading among the other council representatives. The arrival of the humans had triggered a wave of nervousness, with some species visibly unsettled. Even seasoned diplomats seemed rattled, their whispers betraying old fears and unresolved wounds. The humans' reputation preceded them, and despite the respectful words and polished uniforms, there was a collective sense of wariness that was impossible to ignore. The stakes were higher than ever, Zara realized, and this meeting was more than just an exchange of pleasantries. It was the beginning of a complex and potentially perilous chapter in interstellar relations. The nervous reactions of the other species were not without reason. Humanity's past was riddled with conflict, and their presence in the Galactic Council was a reminder of how fragile peace truly was. Zara's heart sank as she considered the challenges ahead, knowing that today's tension was only a precursor to what was to come. As the meeting drew to a close, Zara felt the weight of her responsibility pressing down on her. The future of countless worlds hung in the balance, and the decisions made here would shape the course of history. She stole one last glance at Daniel Vega, who caught her eye and offered a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was a gesture of respect, perhaps even understanding, but it did little to ease the knot of anxiety in her chest. The human delegation had made their intentions clear, but Zara knew that actions, not words, would determine the fate of this alliance. Ambassador Zara Sin stood frozen in place as the sudden, piercing distress signal cut through the tense atmosphere of the Galactic Council chambers. It was as though an invisible wave had struck, rippling through the neural networks that connected many of the Assembly's members. A cold, electric shiver ran down Zara's spine, and she could sense the collective shock and panic settling over the Assembly. The source of the distress signal flashed across the holographic displays in the chamber New Eden. A peaceful colony at the fringes of the Concordat was under attack. The Ravagers, a voice muttered, barely audible but carrying a tremor of fear. Zara's heart clenched at the mention. The Ravagers were more than just another threat. They were space-born nightmares, brutal and relentless. Tales of their horrific onslaughts haunted the histories of many worlds, and for a moment, Zara felt the cold hand of dread clutching at her chest. How had they broken free, and why now? The timing felt almost too cruel to be coincidence. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy began shouting over one another, each voice competing to be heard. Zara watched as panic spread like wildfire. Some members of the council immediately called for measures to protect their own systems, advocating withdrawal and fortification, self-preservation over unity. Others argued, desperately trying to rally for a coordinated defense. The tension that had simmered during the human delegation's arrival now ignited into a full-blown crisis. Amidst the cacophony, the humans remained a calm and resolute presence. Ambassador Daniel Vega stepped forward, his voice cutting cleanly through the chaos. The Earth fleet is prepared to mobilize immediately, he announced. We can defend New Eden Commander Liam Cross nodded in silent agreement, his demeanor steady. Chief of Security Aria Thorne scanned the room, her sharp eyes picking up every flicker of fear and uncertainty. The humans' willingness to take action contrasted sharply with the hesitancy of the council, creating a new wave of tension. Zara felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Part of her was relieved that the humans were willing to step in, but another part bristled at their confidence. It was easy for them to offer military aid when their entire philosophy revolved around peace through strength. Yet she couldn't deny the urgency of the situation. New Eden's population was defenseless. Every second they debated was another second in which lives were lost. The moral dilemma gripped her like a vice. Her people had always chosen diplomacy and understanding over violence. Even in the face of danger, pacifism was their guiding principle. But was pacifism enough against an enemy like the Ravagers? Daniel's voice softened, and he addressed Zara directly. Ambassador Sin, we cannot stand by while innocents suffer. Let us help. His eyes were steady, his plea genuine. Zara looked into those eyes and saw no hint of ulterior motives, only a determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Her heart wavered, and she felt the weight of 1,000 years of tradition pressing down on her. Could she truly abandon her people's beliefs for the sake of survival? Alara Glimmer's markings flickered with uncertainty beside her, mirroring Zara's inner turmoil. The entire council seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her decision. Finally, with a deep, shuddering breath, Zara spoke. "We will accept the humans' aid," she declared, her voice carrying a note of both fear and resolve. "But this is not a declaration of war. This is an act of protection, nothing more." The words felt heavy, as though she had betrayed a sacred trust, but the silent relief in the chamber told her she had made the only choice possible. The human fleet mobilized with astonishing speed. Zara watched in awe as the sleek, silver ships departed from the orbital docks, cutting through the stars like blades of light. Commander Liam Cross coordinated the fleet with an efficiency that left even the most seasoned Concordat strategists speechless. The battle began before the Council's members had even fully processed the gravity of the situation. Ravager ships, grotesque and twisted, emerged from the void, descending upon New Eden like a plague of nightmares. The humans' response was swift and brutal. Their ships formed a shield around the colony, absorbing the Ravagers' relentless assault. Zara stood transfixed, her gaze locked onto the holographic displays that streamed real-time footage of the conflict. Human vessels, despite their smaller size, moved with a unity and ferocity that seemed almost supernatural. When one ship faltered, others filled the gaps. Sacrifices were made and losses were swift, but no one abandoned their position. Zara's hands tightened into fists as she witnessed the unfolding carnage. The horror of it all was nearly too much to bear. Flames erupted and debris spiraled through the cold void of space, each explosion marking another soul lost in the desperate fight. Yet, despite the violence, there was something deeply moving in the human sacrifice. They fought not for conquest or glory, but for the lives of those who couldn't defend themselves. Their willingness to face certain death challenged everything Zara had ever believed about strength and peace. Her thoughts raced as the battle reached its peak. The limitations of her people's pacifist philosophy were painfully clear. What good were words and negotiations in the face of such a merciless enemy? As she watched human ships shield the colony, as she witnessed the sheer determination in their defense, she knew that her world had changed forever. Peace, she realized, required more than ideals. It needed protectors, and perhaps the humans were just that, guardians of those who valued life above all else. The battle raged on, and Zara could do nothing but watch, her heart pounding and her beliefs unraveling with each passing moment. The aftermath of the battle left New Eden a patchwork of destruction and survival, a colony forever scarred but saved from annihilation. The human fleet had successfully defended the vulnerable settlement, but at a cost that could be measured in the broken hulls of their ships and the lives lost in the cold void of space. Zara Sin stood on the observation platform, her gaze fixed on the distant planet below. The once tranquil colony bore the marks of war, and yet, against all odds, it still stood. It was a bitter victory, a triumph etched with pain and sacrifice. Zara had never seen anything like it before. The humans' willingness to sacrifice for those they had no obligation to protect shook her to her core. Her people had always preached peace, a doctrine built on trust and understanding, but watching the human selfless defense made her question the foundation of those beliefs. Commander Liam Cross and Chief of Security Arya Thorne moved among their crews, offering words of solace and orders to repair the damage. Even in the face of immense loss, they radiated strength, their purpose unwavering. As she stood there, trying to process what she had witnessed, a quiet voice broke through her thoughts. Alara Glimmer approached, her bioluminescent markings dimmed in a rare display of sorrow. Ambassador Alara whispered, her voice heavy with emotion. They gave so much. For us, Zara could only nod, her throat tight with unspoken words. The battle had been a brutal reminder that ideals alone could not safeguard the innocent. Strength, tempered with compassion, was necessary to defend against true darkness. Yet, even as the relief of victory settled over the council, whispers of treachery began to spread. Evidence surfaced that some members of the Galactic Council had conspired with the Ravagers. Documents and intercepted communications painted a damning picture. There were those among them who had sought to destabilize the Concordat, trading lives for political leverage. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly, plunging it into a state of turmoil. Zara found herself grappling with feelings of betrayal, the realization that corruption had taken root in the very heart of their governing body. The political crisis deepened as accusations flew and alliances shifted. Zara watched as once respected leaders were questioned, their motives scrutinized under the harsh light of suspicion. It was a sobering moment, one that made her question the effectiveness of the very institution she had dedicated her life to serving. The council, meant to be a bastion of unity, was crumbling from within, and Zara knew that change was inevitable. The question was whether they could rebuild stronger, or if this would mark the beginning of their end. Amid the upheaval, an invitation arrived. Ambassador Daniel Vega extended an offer for Zara to visit Earth, to see humanity beyond the battlefield and understand the culture that had shaped their fierce protectiveness. Despite her reservations, Zara agreed, driven by a desire to learn and perhaps gain a deeper insight into the philosophy that had saved New Eden. Commander Liam Cross and Arya Thorne accompanied her on the journey, their presence both reassuring and a constant reminder of humanity's strength. The journey to Earth was filled with quiet moments of reflection, but nothing could have prepared Zara for the reality of the human homeworld. Earth was a planet of stark contrasts, a place where the beauty of nature coexisted with towering cities of steel and glass. Zara wandered through the bustling streets, guided by Liam and Arya, and found herself immersed in a world alive with emotion and creativity. Music filled the air, vibrant and unapologetic, echoing the joys and sorrows of humanity. Art adorned every corner, from grand murals to simple sketches, each piece a testament to the human spirit. In one quiet moment, Zara stood in a park, surrounded by laughter and the sound of children playing. She watched as families gathered, their bonds evident in every smile and shared gesture. It struck her that humanity was driven not by a love of war, but by a fierce desire to protect what they cherished. Arya, sensing Zara's contemplation, spoke softly. "We fight because we love," she said, her voice carrying a weight of truth. "Because we know how fragile peace is, and we can't bear to see it destroyed." Zara was taken to places where human ingenuity had transformed tragedy into triumph. Memorials stood as reminders of past conflicts, but they were not monuments to violence, they were symbols of remembrance, lessons etched in stone and glass so that future generations might never repeat the mistakes of the past. Liam showed her a sculpture carved from the wreckage of a warship, twisted metal shaped into a figure of hope, arms outstretched toward the sky. Humanity, it seemed, had a unique ability to turn pain into beauty, to rise from the ashes stronger and more determined. Everywhere Zara looked, she saw evidence of a dual nature, a species capable of destruction, but also of immense love and creativity. The visit challenged her views, forcing her to reconsider the dichotomy she had always believed in. Peace was not simply the absence of conflict, but the presence of people willing to defend it, to fight for a better world. It was a sobering realization, but also a hopeful one. Zara began to understand that strength and compassion were not opposing forces but could be woven together to create something truly powerful. As her time on Earth drew to a close, Zara found herself standing on a hill overlooking a sunset that bathed the land in gold and crimson. Liam and Arya stood beside her, silent but present. The horizon seemed endless, a reminder of both the beauty and the vastness of the universe. Zara's heart was heavy with the knowledge she had gained, but also lighter with a newfound understanding. Her people's wisdom, rooted in pacifism, had value. But so did humanity's fierce protectiveness. Perhaps, she thought, there was a way to combine both philosophies, to forge a path that honored life while recognizing the need for guardians willing to stand against the darkness. The experience left her changed. As she prepared to return to the Galactic Council, Zara knew she carried with her a renewed sense of purpose. The universe was vast and filled with threats, but it was also full of beings worth protecting. And perhaps, with humanity's strength and her own people's ideals, they could build a future where peace was more than just a fragile dream. It could be a reality, one forged through unity and an unbreakable resolve. Zara Sin stood once again in the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, a place that had seen centuries of deliberations, alliances, and betrayals. This time, however, she felt different. The weight of recent events pressed heavily on her shoulders, but it was tempered by a newfound sense of purpose. She was no longer the same ambassador who had stood here before. Her views on peace had evolved, reshaped by the human willingness to sacrifice and protect. Clutched in her hand was a data crystal containing the damning evidence of the Council's betrayal, a betrayal that had nearly cost countless innocent lives. The chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, their eyes fixed on Zara as she stepped forward to address them. The crystal spires glistened in the starlight, but the beauty of the room felt at odds with the tension simmering in the air. Taking a deep breath, Zara began her speech, her voice steady yet passionate. "Esteemed members of the Council," she started, "we stand at a crossroads. Recent events have forced us to confront uncomfortable truths, not only about our enemies but about ourselves." She presented the evidence, and the holographic images flickered to life, displaying intercepted messages and incriminating records of those who had conspired with the Ravagers. Gasps and murmurs of disbelief echoed through the chamber. Zara's heart pounded, but she pressed on. "We allowed rot to fester within our ranks. Some among us valued power over the sanctity of life, and it nearly led to our destruction." Her words cut through the room, leaving no space for denial. The guilty parties sat pale and silent, their schemes laid bare for all to see. Zara continued, her voice gaining strength. "Yet, even in the face of our failures, there is hope. I have witnessed a kind of strength that we have long shunned. Humanity has shown us that peace is not simply the absence of conflict but the presence of protectors willing to defend it. They sacrificed for us, not because they had to, but because they chose to. We must reconsider our ideals and acknowledge that true peace requires more than words. It requires strength tempered with compassion." Her speech ignited a fierce debate among the council members. Some representatives vehemently opposed an alliance with humanity, pointing to their history of war and aggression. They argued that aligning with such a species would lead to more conflict, not less. Others, however, supported Zara, echoing her sentiments about the necessity of strength in a dangerous galaxy. The room became a cacophony of arguments, with old alliances fracturing and new ones forming. Zara's eyes swept the room, taking in the discord she had ignited. Her hands clenched into fists as she prepared to respond. "I understand your fears," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "I, too, once questioned humanity's intentions. But what I have seen, what I have experienced, has changed me. They are not conquerors. They are guardians. Their strength complements our wisdom, and together we can forge a new path, one where peace is defended, not just dreamed of." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, the chamber fell silent. The debate raged on, and Zara watched, her heart heavy but hopeful. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the council prepared to vote. The tension was so thick it was almost suffocating. One by one, the representatives cast their decisions, the holographic display tracking each vote in real time. The outcome was close, each vote a nail-biting moment. But in the end, the alliance passed narrowly, but it passed. The Guardian Accord was formed, a historic shift that marked the beginning of a new era. As the final vote was cast, a sense of relief washed over Zara, but it was fleeting. The moment the ceremony concluded, an emergency transmission interrupted the proceedings. Alarms blared and a holographic image of New Eden skies appeared. Ravager ships, more numerous and coordinated than ever, were launching a full-scale assault. The news sent shockwaves through the council. The alliance would be tested far sooner than anyone had anticipated. Commander Liam Cross and Chief of Security Arya Thorne sprang into action, coordinating the newly allied forces with the precision of seasoned warriors. Zara felt a rush of both fear and determination. There was no time for doubt. The final battle had come, and the fate of countless lives hung in the balance. The combined forces of Earth and the Concordat deployed swiftly, their ships moving as one cohesive unit. Human vessels formed the vanguard, their aggressive tactics designed to draw the Ravagers' fire and shield the more vulnerable Concordat ships. The battle that unfolded was a spectacle of unity and devastation. Human and Concordat ships worked together seamlessly, their strengths complementing each other in ways that neither side had imagined possible. Human fighters launched daring counterattacks, while Concordat shield ships provided protective barriers that saved entire squadrons from destruction. Zara watched from the command center, her heart pounding as she witnessed the unprecedented cooperation. Explosions lit up the void of space, and every moment was a test of endurance and strategy. Ravager ships, monstrous and relentless, fought with the ferocity of predators sensing wounded prey. Yet for every loss, the combined forces struck back with equal might. The battle was brutal, but it was also beautiful in its demonstration of what unity could achieve. The humans' aggression, tempered by the Concordat's protective strategies, created a defense that was nearly unbreakable. Zara found herself standing beside Daniel Vega, who watched the battle unfold with a mix of hope and determination. "We can do this," he said, his voice steady. Together Zara nodded, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. For the first time, she believed it wholeheartedly. Humanity's fierce protection and her people's wisdom were a powerful combination, one that could reshape the galaxy. The battle reached a fever pitch, and just when it seemed that the Ravagers might break through, a final, coordinated strike from the Allied forces turned the tide. Ravager ships exploded in fiery bursts, and the remnants of their fleet fled into the darkness. Cheers erupted from the command center, a sound that carried both relief and triumph. The alliance had held strong. As the dust settled and the threat was repelled, Zara stood beside Daniel, watching their united forces regroup. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, but now there was hope. They had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger. "This is only the beginning," Zara said softly, her voice carrying a note of determination. Daniel nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars. "Yes," he replied, "but it's a beginning worth fighting for." And so, with their alliance forged in the crucible of battle, Zara and Daniel knew that the challenges ahead would be many. But they also knew that united they had the strength to face whatever came next. Together they would defend peace, not just for their own people, but for the entire galaxy.